chant for vanquishing demonic and evil spirits. So let's take it away. um, I'm Brittany Jade Wilson, and I call myself and all of our benevolent ancestors into the circle. May any spirits and energies that don't serve us be liberated. Like O mabia nagpurbatso tswa. O mabia nagpurbatso tswa. O mabia nagpurbatso tswa. So that is a good, simple yet powerful one to learn. I will post the lyrics for that in the bonus materials because it is written. And it can be sung infinite times, so no specific protocols around the number of times unless you want to go with 108, 154 like that. Yes. And so I would like to invite our guest speaker for the first few minutes of class, Karen, to join us and speak a little piece about what her journey and life is like here in the Quechua Nation, interacting with herbal plant medicines. I'm going to just put the camera more on her and I'll be here translating.
Yeah. Alin p'unchay panakuna imaynalla kashankichis qankuna. Nuqa sutimi Karen Carla Tinta Chumbishlla, ishkay wawachaykuna nuqaq kan. Nuqakuna p'unchay rimasaq plantakunama, de los alimentos, chaymanta rimasaq imaynata nuqa llaqtaykupi tiyayku.
Yeah, so she just said in Quechua, good morning. She hopes you all find yourselves well. Her name is Karen Tinta Chumbisla, from the member of the Quechua Nation. She has 2 children, 2 babies, and, and she's just going to share a little bit about her experience living with.
Cómo en nuestra cultura vivimos, plantas que nosotros mismos cosechamos. Yo, al momento que nací, mis padres me inculcaron de las plantas medicinales, de los alimentos naturales que nosotros cultivamos en nuestro pueblo. Nuestro pueblo es la comunidad de Carhuis, anexo Oratía. En ese lugar nosotros cosechamos papa, cosechamos lisas, oca, habas, maíz. Con esos alimentos nos alimentamos nosotros. También trabajamos las plantas medicinales.
Her parents wrapped her in medicinal pregnant women who have given birth and their babies to get wrapped and bathed in medicinal plants. And she's grown up in her parents' pueblo, growing their potatoes, their yuca, which is another type of tuber here, and with their own 2 hands, growing medicine and foods like that.
Nosotros cuando alguno de nuestros hijos se enferma, les curamos con nuestras plantas ancestrales que nuestros abuelos, nuestros tatarabuelos nos han inculcado. Y ese sigue descendiendo entre nosotros, nuestros hijos, nuestros nietos y nuestros sobrinos nos curamos. Por ejemplo, cuando las mamás dan parto, hacemos el hualtasca y con nuestras plantas medicinales y los cebos de los animales que nosotros mismos criamos.
Yeah, so she was just talking a little bit about why she was wrapped in herbs when she was born, which is part of the Waitasca ceremony, which is traditional to the Quechua lineage, where, like I was saying, the moms and the babies, from the time they give birth, are wrapped in medicinal herbs and also from the fats of animals that they grow and sacrifice at the time of birth.
También elaboramos esos tipos de, usamos para preparar los productos del huatasca, usamos el batán. El batán está elaborado por nuestros padres, nuestros abuelos, ellos mismos lo elaboran. Está elaborado de piedra y los instrumentos que usamos son las ollas de barro que también usamos para cocinar, la concha, que es para cocinarnos, y con esos productos también hacemos el huatasca. También utilizamos el poncho, la caperina y el chumpi para envolvernos a las mujeres y fajar a los bebés que criamos nosotros, para que ellos sean fuertes y crezcan sanos.
Yeah, and so she was saying that some of her favorite tools and some of the tools that she's grown up using to make the plant medicines are the batan. So that's going to be like the big mortar and pestle, like I shared a picture of with the group. A stone and a stone. Olla de barro, which is clay pots. The concha, which she just taught me the word for earlier, which is like the actual clay hornos, like the clay ovens, not like an adobe oven, but I don't actually have one today, but I'll share a photo. And then apart from that, the thing they use most when preparing herbal treatments and herbal medicines are going to be the ponchos, the fajas, and the chumpis, which are various types of traditional weavings from natural fibers, usually that are naturally dyed with plants as well.
Nosotros en nuestra comunidad trabajamos el ayllu, el aini. El aini consiste en que nos ayudamos a trabajar en las chacras, hacer trabajos de casa, es colaboración, ese se llama el AINI, es para ayudarnos entre todos y para así progresar y trabajar nuestros productos en la chacra. Y también elaboramos chacras con toros, hacemos cultivos con animales, no utilizamos fertilizantes, no, solo es abono, el guano de la oveja que usamos para nuestros alimentos y para así que sean naturales nuestros productos. Igualmente utilizamos en las plantas, nosotros mismos vamos a la altura, cosechamos nuestras plantas medicinales. En las alturas, por ejemplo, crece el cuñumuña, el pampamuña, valeriana, el yaulliquiza, con todos esos productos nosotros nos curamos a nosotros, a nuestros hijos, a nuestros abuelos, a nuestros padres, con todos esos productos.
Yeah. So she was just saying that something that they use for curing, for one, for staying healthy, that like working with the plant nations is so that their sons and daughters grow up healthy and sanos, and strong, but also that when they want to cure, something that they work with is actually walking together and working with the concept of aini, which is a Quechua word meaning the intercambio, or the inner exchange of community help. So that's a practice that's still alive and well here, whether we're talking about harvesting medicinal plants or foods that were grown, or perhaps also harvesting animal parts, where the community members actually come and take turns working at each other's homes or farms like that. There's no money exchanged for the help. It's more just like, okay, today we're working at Gutton's farm. We're going to harvest all the tulsi. If everyone's working at her farm today, then she would prepare like a big food for everyone, and like that. And then the next day you go to the next person's farm like that. Yeah. And so that's a little bit about Garen and how she's been raised to work with traditional plants, like that, and her unbroken Quechua lineage. And I was just going to ask her a couple of questions, and then we're going to open it up for the group to ask her a few questions, before we go ahead and get into the technical part of class today. Ya, te voy a preguntar algunas cositas, ¿ya?
Ya.
¿Y cómo ves en la maternidad que con tus hijos, estás dando también al mismo sabiduría sobre las plantas o cómo están relacionándose con las plantas? So I just asked her, tengo que traducir la pregunta.
Ya.
I just asked her in the modern world, because Karen has two kids, how she's raising up her children to relate with the plant nations and medicine making.
Yo a mi pequeña, tengo mi menor hija que también está aprendiendo de las plantas, yo le estoy inculcándole y están basándose más bien en lo natural, en las plantas, en elaborar ellos mismos, estoy enseñándole a elaborar mismos con los productos que nosotros trabajamos sobre las plantas, enseñándole a ellos también que las plantas son mucho mejores, plantas curativas para nuestro cuerpo humano que tal vez algunos medicamentos. Y el inculco que les doy a ello, a mi pequeña, es sobre las plantas que son más importantes, que gracias a ella, a la Pachamama, estamos aquí, gracias a la tierra tenemos alimentos, productos con los que podamos vivir nosotros.
Yeah, so she said that she's teaching her daughter, even though she is going to like a modern school in Cusco, not in such a small pueblo. Cusco is considered like the big city here. So um, that she's teaching her that thanks to the Mother Earth and thank you to the nature and the naturaleza, that we're able to have materials and products with which to live. And she's teaching her daughter the different properties of the local plants that grow nearby, because they realize that in many cases, the plants are going to heal in a more holistic way than some medicines or maybe mainstream like pills and stuff like that. Yeah, so that's my question for Karen. And Michaela, do you have any question? And then we can open it up for the group if they have a couple before we jump in.
Yes, thank you so much, Karen, also for yeah, explaining how you were raised in this beautiful way. I was wondering how like yeah, the modern world has been impacting traditional medicine making and access to plants in the region, with the like if there has been taking of land and how has that been yeah, if, how has that been impacting the way that medicine is made traditionally?
Ya, entonces Michaela, te he dado las gracias, maestra, por estar
Mm,
aquí y compartir. Y mira, esto, mira, porque no estoy. Y su pregunta es, ¿cómo está impactando la modernidad y el mundo moderna en el aspecto de que la gente está comprando la tierra, que a veces no se encuentran muchas plantas que había antes? O sea, ¿cómo es ahora? Ya.
Normalmente en nuestra comunidad donde que estamos evitando que los pobladores vendan sus tierras. ¿Por qué? Porque las plantas medicinales están extinguiéndose, no hay como antes. Y para evitar esas cosas, el presidente de la comunidad evita que vendan los terrenos, las tierras y cuidar más la contaminación, no botar basura, evitar algunos carros o chancar las plantas, sacarlos las plantas, evitar esas plantas, evitar que lo saquen y producir más. Tal vez sacan la raíz de la planta, lo vuelven a plantar y así va creciendo las plantas. Y así evitamos que no nos malogre la población a nuestras plantas medicinales que tenemos en nuestra zona.
Yeah, so her answer was that there has been a problem of many of the medicinal plants going extinct, or becoming endangered. And so there's actually within her several communities that she's a part of because of her parents and seven brothers. There's community initiatives for the people of the community, the native people of the community, to not sell the lands, to not sell the lands to businesses or to foreigners, so that they can maintain the cultivation of medicinal plants, and also community campaigns um, to curb the use of any sort of pesticides or chemicals or trash that could be contributing like that. So yeah, so it sounds like, to your question, Michaela, that there has been some effect, especially I would say when Karen was littler, maybe. And now there's a lot more community initiatives to preserve the plant medicines like that through pretty much through not selling their local lands.
I'm always really curious about the role of women healers and mothers in the preservation of the culture and preservation of herbal and plant knowledge.
Michaela te está preguntando qué rollo tiene las mamás, o sea, las mamás y bebés y la medicina de la mujer adentro de la conservación de la sabiduría ancestral y las plantas.
Ah, ya. La conservación que nosotros tenemos es la elaboración del hualtasca para que tenga amplio, mm, tengan cariño entre madre e hijo y no se pierda ese cariño y también diferentes tipos de plantas que tenemos hacen que tengan ese compartir entre madre e hijo y no se pierda ese tipo de lazo que tiene.
Yeah, so her answer is that one of the main traditions that they practice, which is only for the women and specifically women who have given birth, which she mentioned is the Waitasca or the Waitasca tradition, which involves many different, like docenas de plantas, no?
Miles, miles
Yeah, it involves many different medicinal plants, this type of ceremony, and it's done traditionally after birth or abortion or miscarriage. And it's done to preserve the connection between the mother and children, and to strengthen the mother throughout the rest of the walk of her life after giving birth or experiencing child loss. And because it involves so many different plants and ingredients in that one ceremony, it keeps the cultivation and the protection of those types of plants alive in their communities. Okay, thank you for joining us for the medicine making class today. I just wanted to start it back out because it has been a while since we did our foundational medicine making class, and wanted to remind us about some of the indigenous perspective on herbal medicine making and bring that back around. So for scarred tissue, and Christine did get into the scarred tissue uh, practice of hydration and releasing through the fascia. Um, and I just wanted to add a few of my favorite herbal allies for dissolving scarred tissue. I do remember we went over Copaiba during our herbal class, our herbal ally class, but there's a couple of other really important ones that I missed out on. And so they are castor oil. So the castor plant has been used by humans for thousands of years to nourish the skin, dissolve scar tissue, reproduce healthy cells, encourage healthy digestion, soak the eyeballs. Castor oil could be considered even perhaps a everlasting plant of life in that regard. And it can be used topically. You could put some drops of castor oil in the bottom steams. You could dilute the castor oil into a carrier oil to actually physically rub on the part of the skin that's scarred or being affected, like that. And then we have mustard seed. Mustard seed, so just like culinary mustard seed, like you're used to, can work from the inside out to help gently dissolve scarred tissue and adhesions and help increase healthy cell reproduction. And I like to incorporate mustard seed a lot when it is something that's very long-standing and perhaps related to the family dynamics energetically. So you could use it as a edible herbal ally. You can use her in some of our body scrubs, some of our creams like that. I remember we did do a guaje and thuya, so Western red cedar, and I couldn't remember if we covered Western red cedar or not, but she's very abundant and has been used. I feel like I remember covering her regarding STIs and STDs, but also Western red cedar is wonderful for taking internally for dissolving scarred tissue or to incorporate into the steams and the balms and topically in order to dissolve like scarred tissue like that. Okay, so just a few of the herbal allies. And then one other important thing that I forgot to mention and woke up in the middle of the night being like, I have to remember that for next class, um, was from last week's Untying the Knot class regarding how to protect oneself. And we did get into this a bit more in discussion group. But throughout time and cultures, it's been known and seen that, you know, anytime that we have addictions, so we did talk about with me the fight or flight loop and getting out of the fight or flight loop like that. So we can be addicted to thought patterns, we can be addicted to hormonal loops, we can be addicted to substances, people, uh, places, even I would venture to say. And so when we have these addictions, they can become like weaknesses in our field or weaknesses in our mind, weaknesses in our body. And through those weaknesses and through those cracks is how it's been understood for, you know, a long time that this is one of the main ways that unfavorable spirits, unfavorable relationships, if you're not particularly a spiritual person, unfavorable relationships with humans and otherworldly beings come in us through the addictions. Okay. They come in us through the addictions. And so, whenever we're looking at addictions, we did give you some herbal allies for helping with that. And I would say looking at it in the grandmother way, you know, just like the grandmother healing way, where we're not beating ourselves up for not being perfect every single time. We are simply choosing healthy habits and choosing healthy relationships whenever possible in order to fortify our field from unfavorable influences. Okay, thank you very much. So without further ado, I would like to get into how to prepare some and almost all of our plant medicine options that are out there. So I'm going to go ahead and start with uh, the flower essence or flower bath base. So I'm going to get my water and let's start with our flower essence base and our flower bath base. Okay. Um, because if we were doing this home and garden styles where you were doing it along with me, this would be about the amount of time that we need to make a flower essence base, okay? Or a nice flower bath. So at least 2 hours is usually the minimum, okay? He shared with you how to make flower essences in the Bach lineage, okay? And I respect his work. That's why I included it. When you see flower essences in the local store, they're going to be done in the Bach lineage mainly. He certainly was very dedicated to the plant nations, and so I can't knock him, you know. But the way that I have, and I am a certified Bach flower essence practitioner. I also took that training when I was a teenager. I just personally have been working with flower essences and flower baths in a more indigenous lens since I was young and continue to. So you'll see some slight variations from the Bach lineage in this preparation, but it's also very similar. One of the similar points is that he also agrees that you want to set them out in the light for at least 2 hours. So let us see here. Just gonna see if we got it. So I have some water here, my fresh water. Okay. And if you're going to be working with, if you're going to be working to make a bath, a flower bath that you're going to receive in the moment, or in the next few days here, then you can use pretty much any water. We just got this. This is just spring water out of the tap from our house here. If you are going to be preparing this as a flower essence base for maybe your herbal business or for more long-term consumption, then you want to use distilled water. Okay. And I'm just going to take my Pyrex container here. Okay, we talked about bath instruction a little before, but I am just filling up a clear container here. Yes, filling up the clear container. I love working with Pyrex for flower essences personally because cheap, natural, affordable. If like a dust storm comes by or something interesting or strange flies by, they usually have the perfect little tops that fit on top of them. Um, and they're perfect for that. So it's important when we're making our flower bass or a flower essence that it is a glass receptacle whenever possible. Okay, whenever possible. I have been before in the Amazon where we'll just use a plastic tina for a plant bath, but that's, you know, mainly because that's all that's there. And even in that case, we do try to use a clear plastic. The reason is that we want the light to come through. So remember, with when we're making a plant bath or a flower essence base, the menstruum is the water. The menstruum meaning the substance that's going to hold the imprint of the medicine, in this case, an energetic imprint of the medicine. Okay. So when we go on to tincture making, we're talking about vinegar making, menstruum in that case is going to be holding the physical constituents. Okay. The physical constituents. This menstruum, the water, is going to be holding the energetic constituents. And so the vehicle through which the energetic blueprint of the plant comes into the menstruum is through light. And so that's why it's important to have either a glass or a clear, otherwise clear receptacle. Okay. So here we have, and this is going to be the same process. We're going to make the same exact process, whether we are preparing. The beginning of this process will look the same, whether we're preparing to make a energetic plant bath or whether we're preparing a flower essence for internal use. Okay. The first steps will be the same. Other than what I mentioned, if you're going to use it for long-term consumption, you may want to think about using distilled water. I have my, let me get this crap. Just 1 second. I have my handy dandy entire honeysuckle plant right next to me. Usually we would be going out and actually, you know, harvesting from a wild one, but I just happen to have my handy dandy honeysuckle plant right here in the plant room. And so what we're going to do is remember, not taking more than we need, not taking without giving back. We are making a vibrational plant medicine when we're making a plant bath or an essence. And so I'm going to I'm taking a leaf between my fingers. I'm going to show you while I'm holding it. And gently, ever so gently, plucking between the leaf, the plant right here. I have one little honeysuckle flower. Okay. And when you're doing a flower bath or a flower essence, you could also choose to use a glove. You could choose your nifty little glass knife that you got. Oh, I got two. Okay. And so I'm just gently dropping the flower onto the surface of the water like that. Okay. And I'm just going to repeat. If I wasn't explaining this to you while I was doing it, I would normally be singing. We talked about honeysuckle being a wonderful herbal ally for healing sexual trauma and reproductive trauma, specifically when it happened in early childhood. Okay. The flower essence of honeysuckle is traditionally associated with nostalgia, healing early childhood wounds, healing the sexuality, bringing and calling this parts of our spirits back to the present moment. Okay, so I'm just gently and intentionally plucking one by one. Okay, I got a couple of little leaves floating in there along with the flowers. That's no concern at all. Don't it's totally fine if you get a little bit of other plant debris in there. Um, in fact, maybe it's more perfect, right? That you have a couple of those tiny itty little bitty baby leaves reminding you of your inner child like that, healing any sexual, making a tea of honeysuckle. It's wonderful for regulating the blood pressure. Um, it, but right now we're making an energetic, specifically which occurred in early childhood. Okay. And this can be lovely. Honeysuckle is very abundant in many parts of the world. And so this can be just a lovely option for a plant bath diet for someone who's wanting to maybe gently either uncover some unclear early childhood memories around the trauma and or bring resources, bring medicine to the place of those memories. Okay. This little tiny plant here. But normally, see how they're floating just right on the surface of the water like this? I would just keep plucking and keep plucking. I'll do it with leaves so that you can actually see. Because when we're making essences, it's, yeah, in Bach, they're called flower essences. But even in the Bach lineage, they're not just flowers. Like if you look even in the free, the bonus flower essence guide that y'all got, some of it's like rock water, some of it's like apis, bee. Same with homeopathy. It's not all actual flowers. We talked about last class using like the sprout of redwood to make an essence. You know, you can use different parts of the plants like that according to their energetics. So I'm just still, and when we're making our flower baths or our flower essences or any type of purely energetic plant medicine, want to be extra careful about not wearing any strong perfumes. If you're tobacco smoking while you're doing it, or perhaps while I'm dropping them in there, is just making sure that each little leaf and each little flower has its own space, okay? Its own space in there. We're not doing a tincture right now. We're not trying to extract as many physical constituents as possible. And so we're just giving each little piece of the plant its own space to really imprint its vibration into the menstruum, into, which in this case is, as we discussed, the water. Okay. Almost done here. I'm going to go for some little baby. Oh, I'm going to go for this new growth. Okay. I'm going to play with my essence here that this new growth, this bud coming, this little bud in. Yeah. I'm going to do that for the new growth that's coming after we've clarified and healed our early childhood memories of the sexual trauma. We're going to put that new growth because life finds a way. Okay. And there you have it. I could maybe put more, you know, but you don't have to with a flower bath or a flower essence. The important thing is that you're careful about not getting your skin oils or any fragrances or anything else inside the menstruum, and that each piece of the plant has its own little space like that, its own little space, all floating around, all beautiful like that. See? Something I like to do when making the flower baths and that I've learned and been taught to do when making flower baths or flower essences is sing to it. Okay. And that was in cardinal directions of medicine making, and I believe our second class. And so I would just sing to it like this, you know, from far away, like a microphone, so that I'm not actually getting my spit physically in it. So maybe like something like Oh, I forgot my voice. Something like, let's go with our chant from today. Om Avya Nagpurvatso Swaha. Take this Pyrex dish and go place it. I'm not actually, we will pretend I'm going to go place it out under direct sunlight or moonlight, depending on what you're working with, okay? Sunlight or moonlight, okay? And you want to place it in the sunlight or moonlight for at least 2 hours, as discussed. At least 2 hours. Yes, and taking care that no foreign debris comes into the mixture like that. So let's put it up behind me. Let's put it up behind me for our little reminder of our flower bath. So if we're making it a flower bath, a cold flower bath, as in a giant flower essence that we're bathing in, we would then take it just as is after the couple of hours and just dump it directly over the head. Boom. Or perhaps I might dump it back into, if I had like a group of people I was giving the bath to, I might dump it back into my empty pitcher. Pitcher's not actually empty, but imagine that it was. And then like that, pour over the heads. With the cold flower baths, it's important that you want to let it dry on you and let the plants dry on you. The idea there being that you let the vibration of the plant fully sink into your energetic imprint, and that goes with you throughout the day or throughout your dream time, whichever time of day you're using it at. That's for if you're going to bathe with it. So if you want to preserve your plant bath, so for example, maybe I want to do like a honeysuckle plant bath diet for 4 days, okay? You could go ahead and store it in your pitcher, and then use like a fourth of it each day. It's important when doing our plant bath diets that we stick with a similar time of day, to go ahead and work with those similar energies like that, okay? It can be especially effective for survivors to work with the time of day that the abuse occurred, or inversely, the time of day when the memories are coming up, which can often be the evening time, the nighttime. Right before bed is a lovely time to do an energetic plant bath. For me, I'm partial to that time because I love receiving messages in the dream time after that. So if we're going to then use this flower essence, so say it's been soaking out for 2 hours, we're going to then use this flower essence for internal use. Okay, the only difference there is that we're going to go like this. Going to go like this, and I would just gently, ever so gently, pour into my receptacle. I'm going to actually use a leaf of the same plant, and I'm going to just like this to filter it. Boom. So that I'm not actually getting any of the plant material. Okay. I'm just getting the essence water. Okay. And with that essence water, I'm going to go ahead and set this over here. With that essence water that you've strained after you let it soak for at least 2 hours, you're then going to put it in your handy dandy mother bottle. So that's how you make a mother of a flower essence, a mother. So the very strong, the seed from which your other flower essences can be bred, is going to be just straight directly like we just did that. So you would soak it for up to 2 hours, strain the physical plant material out, put it into your sterile mother bottle that you have. Okay. And then you're going to put at least a fourth, and this is different in the Bach tradition, which you do have the recipe in your free ebook for if you want to do it the Bach way. But the way I've been taught is you want to do at least a fourth grain alcohol. So you'll put the flower water in at least 3/4, and then the last fourth is going to be grain alcohol. And that's going to be just to preserve it long term. Okay. To preserve it and keep it nice and sterile since it is for internal use. With your flower essence mother, okay, your flower essence mother bottle, you're then going to take it and put only one full dropper, one full dropper into your littler bottle. You should have gotten, oof, I can't remember the ounces right now, but there would be a littler one in your kit too. I think it's like 1 ounce or 2 ounces maybe. You'll take one full dropper from your mother, from your flower essence mother, put it in your empty, sterile, smaller bottle, boom, boom, like this. Okay. So here's my flower essence mother. Boom, I'm dropping it into my littler bottle. And then you're gonna use distilled water actually will take, okay, that you would actually take internally. If you're gonna take it for a course of 7 to 10 days, you don't have to put any alcohol in it, and that is what I recommend doing. If you are gonna end up making these for sale, you know, like an herbal business, then you would wanna go ahead and sterilize your flower essence again with at least 1/4 grain alcohol, okay? And there you have, so this flower essence, the mother, the big, strong one like that, the undiluted one, you can make flower essences from that for years to come. And it's a beautiful thing with our herbal medicines. We always want to make sure that they're clearly labeled. And we always want to make sure that our herbal medicines are labeled with the moon cycle that they were made in. But I prefer doing that. You don't need to, I guess. But the date that they were made, the moon cycle that they were made, and the ingredients, okay? That we know what we're taking. And for making flower essences and flower baths energetically, energetic flower baths, energetic flower essences, okay? Wonderful for that purpose. I find that as an herbalist that there's so much to work on for survivors herbally, supporting the adrenal system, dissolving scarred tissue, treating STIs, STDs, restoring healthy cells. But as far as the emotional and spiritual aspects of being a survivor goes, I find that energetic plant baths and flower essences are going to be, by and large, one of the best ways to receive herbal medicine. Why? Because it's gentle, affordable, accessible, and gently peels back the layers, gently heals, gently invites healing from the self, rather than a strong herbal action of someone coming in and doing something to you, uh, which can often carry a similar vibration as the traumatic event. Okay, so let's do our oil base. Okay, so from the flower water base, we can do pretty much any type of flower essence or energetic flower bath, okay, which can be used for uh, healing the feet, bathing the whole body, like we talked about in a plant bath diet, or ingesting flower essences, okay? The one thing I do not have, before we go to oils, I do not have here to show you today how, but just to go over that briefly. And the holistic herbalism community there, in terms of tea talk, is an infusion or a decoction, okay? And so when we're making a tea that's an infusion, we are going to be pretending this is my cup. If we're making an infusion, we have our herbs, boom, in my little cup, my herbs, and then I'll bring some hot water to the herbs, boom. That's an infusion. With an infusion, that's like a normal tea that you're used to making with a tea bag. That's going to be an infusion because you're bringing hot water to the dried tea, boom. What's important, whether you're making an infusion or a decoction, is to cover that bee. You want to cover it. You want to cover it because a lot of the essential oils and medicinal properties will escape out through the smoke. Okay. So with an infusion, just like you make with a normal tea bag, you're going to put the herbs, you're going to bring hot water to the herbs, and you're going to cover it and let steep for usually 2 to 5 minutes. Okay. A decoction, in terms of tea, is going to be when we bring the water on top of the herbs. We cover and then simmer for up to 15 minutes, okay? Again, wall covered, so that the medicinal properties don't escape out, okay? And that's gonna be a decoction when you simmer the herbs on low for up to 15 minutes. And we usually are gonna be doing teas that are infusions for drinking when we are talking about the floral parts of a plant or when we're working with dried plant, usually in general. And then we'll usually be choosing to make a decoction as a tea when we are doing the roots, when we're doing fresh plant, when we're doing any sort of part of the plant that's going to be um, more dense and more hard to get to. That's when we're going to choose to do a decoction. So just when in your herbal reading, you know, we went over a lot of herbal allies that are appropriate to use as teas. You would choose to either make an infusion or a decoction based on those attributes. And always making sure to cover them and using your five senses. So when we go over the oil now, the flower bath, the pusanga, all of it, use your five senses, okay? Because we live in different climates, we live at different altitudes, we live in places where we may be using firewood to make our heating mechanism, or we may be using a five-star super controlled convection oven. So depending on what your environment is and what you're using, it's going to be a different amount of time, right? You may need to simmer the plants for 15 minutes. You may need to simmer them for 5, depending. Um, I encourage you with all medicine plant making, please engender the relationship with your five senses. You know, do you see the smells of the plant coming out in the menstruum? Do you see do you see the colors of the plant? Do you smell the aromas? Can you touch it? Did the texture of the plant change? You know, do you see the alchemy of the medicine making happening? That's when you know that it's ready. So just a side note on teas, okay? And a tea, you would do the same thing when you're making a hot herbal bath, okay? So we just went over how to make a cold floral bath for energetic purposes, but we did cover many medicinal herbal allies for survivors that you would want to make a warm sitz bath for or a hot herbal bath. And we talked about, you know, for first aid, for STDs, STIs, yeast infections. And so to make a warm sitz bath, to make a bottom steam, to make a warm plant bath, you are going to make a large decoction, which we just learned about. So simmering the plants on low while covered, and you will put your bottom in it. You will sit in it just like a flower essence. A cold flower bath is pretty much making a giant flower essence and dumping it on your head. Okay. Same too with taking a bottom steam or a sitz bath or a warm medicinal plant bath. You're going to make a large decoction. So when you simmer the herbs in water for 15 minutes while covered, and then if you're doing a steam, you know, or a sitz bath, just test that temperature right here on this part of your skin, just like you would a baby bottle, okay? Just for general first aid, okay? And I don't have, you know, the ability right now to show you my bath, but I did want to make sure that we got those in the class. So they're very useful for survivors. And we would want to use the warm sitz baths and the warm plant baths as opposed to the cold plant bath when we're wanting to absorb more of the physical constituents of the plant. Okay. So when we're looking for the attributes that are going to be anti-inflammatory, that are going to be antifungal, antibacterial, or to help dissolve the scar tissue like that. Okay. Moving on to the oil base. Okay, so we have so far the cold plant bath base, right, which bursts all of the flower essences and energetic cleansing from. Is wonderful for cleansing the home, cleansing the crystals, cleansing the self, incorporating the spirit of the plant into our energetic tapestry. We have the tea, the infusion and decoction from which we can make vaginal steams, scrotum steams, bottom steams, sitz baths, hot plant baths. And now we have the oil, okay? The oil, when the oil becomes the menstruum, that's gonna be the type of plant medicine menstruum that's able to birth the balms, the salves, the lip glosses, the creams, the whipped shea butter, all of that stuff. So I am going to get my oil ready here. I do not have a fire behind me, but we are going to pretend. I have here my receptacle with oil. I feel like that's the sun's on it too much. I have my receptacle with oil. And I wanted to show you just in this basic mason jar one because you can make a plant oil in the sun. You know, the sun can be your heating element if you live in certain places for your medicinal plant oil, okay? Or you can introduce heat through a stove, through a wood burning clay pot, like Gudden was talking about. And here's a difference now. When we've been talking about plant baths, we've been talking about um, flower essences, we've been talking about teas, and for all of those, you can choose to use dried or fresh herb. It really is just what's available to you. There isn't much of a difference for that purpose. For the flower essences, we do recommend that you use fresh whenever possible, fresh parts of the plant, okay? Now, when we're working with an oil, we want to make sure that our plant material is thoroughly dried, okay? That at least 4 ounces of thoroughly dried plant material, okay? And this is important because we don't want mold or bacteria to develop in our mother oil, okay? In our mother oil, okay? So once I have my oil, I'm going to be putting my dried herb. I'm working with eucalyptus today. Delicious, dried. Smelling it as I go. It's amazing. Loving it. We're going to be putting it full, almost full, okay? Because we're no longer doing like the flower essence thing where we're only covering the surface of the menstruum. Now we're actually going to be kind of packing it in there, okay? It's very important when we're making our oil that there's enough oil to completely cover all of the plant. We don't want any part of the plant sticking up, okay? I'm just using a chopstick. The chopstick is just like one of my favorite little pokey friends to have around my medicine making toolkit. When you're making an oil, you can choose to use any plant-based oil. You know, anyone that has a more high heat resistance, some plant-based oils that have a high heat tolerance. So like sunflower oil, almond oil, grapeseed oil. Those are ones that have a little bit higher heat tolerance to them. And then ones like olive oil and some other ones have a very low heat tolerance, meaning they'll become rancid very quickly if you heat them up too much. So we want to avoid herbal medicine making with the oils that have a very low heat tolerance if we are going to be working with salves and balms and things of that nature, okay? All right, so now I have my oil. It is completely covering every part of the plant. And when I say every part, it's important that all around and inside of the jar, you know, everywhere, okay? If I'm going to be making it just straight in my jar, I even could go ahead and close it, give it a shaky shake. You want to make sure, I like to sometimes pound it like this with my hand or on the table so that you have completely covering the plant. And the reason for this is also the same reason why we want to work with dry plant material when we're making our oils, because we don't want any air bubbles or we don't want any air bubbles or moisture bubbles to lend itself to mold or bacteria growing in our oil carrier. Okay. It's very sad when we make plant medicine in time and then we check on it and it has mold in it. So, so we have our oil here. And if I was going to make this in the sun, you know, the next step of putting the dried plant in the oil is exposing it to heat. Okay, when we were making our cold flower bath, the vehicle through which the medicine was received into the menstruum was the sunlight or moonlight. with the teas and decoctions and hot plant baths. It was the heat as well. Heat's very big in herbal medicine making and in human life in general, right? And now we want to add the element of heat to make sure that all the properties from these eucalyptus leaves get thoroughly soaked into that oil base there. And so if I wanted to do this in the sun, which I could easily do here in Cusco, in the Sacred Valley, because it's very hot here during the day. It's very desert-like. So when we have our oil, we want to expose the heat. I have a nice stone patio out here. So you could easily put this oil with the dried herbs out on a stone patio, or if you live in like a desert-like climate, or even on the top of your car in any urban reservation near you. As long as it's not so hot that it's going to break the glass, you can put it in the sun for, and again, I hesitate to give you a specific amount of days or hours because it really depends where you're living and what you're working with. For example, it would be very different if I were to put this out on a stone patio here at 10,000 feet, in the Andes, than if I were to put it out in Florida, under a palm tree. That would be very different. So again, thinking of the five senses, you can expose this oil to the heat of the sun until you see the color and the aroma and the material of the plant taking hold in your carrier oil. Okay. That's one way to just simply make it in the sun. And the important thing, remember, is that we always want to be shaking and checking and pounding to make sure that there's no parts of the plant that are exposed to the air and no little pockets inside, that we don't pack it so densely that there's like pockets of plant in there that could be exposed to mold. That's the main thing when making carrier oils. And also that our receptacles are nice and sterile, which you have your own oil receptacle that came to you in the mail to make it with that. And again, keep it clearly labeled so that we know when it was made, preferably the cycle of the moon, like that. You can also make a carrier oil with dried herb by just taking it like this and storing in a cool, dry place. Okay, cool, dry place for at least a moon cycle. And you would come in and just like shake it every day. That's another wonderful and very gentle way to absorb the plant medicine into the oil. If you choose to do the long-term oil pool like that, it is debated in the herbalism community that you maybe don't get all of the properties of the plant because you didn't expose heat, which I would agree to that. I would agree to that. So something to keep in mind. If you want to make a medicated herbal oil in a pinch in a shorter time frame, then what you would do is take this oil, and I could do it in several different ways. I could either put this in some hot water, boom, just like that, especially since I have it sealed here and I'm not going to get any water inside here. Okay. Just sit it in a double boiler, or sit it inside some slightly boiling, simmering water for, again, 20 minutes to an hour, however long the oil starts to change color, and you really absorb the medicinal properties in that way. Or if you don't want to work with a jar directly, you can use your clay pot or your other receptacle to just put your oil in, put your plant material in, cover it, and simmer on low for 15 to 30 minutes, depending on, again, what plant you're working with and how long. Once you have your oil thoroughly infused with your plant material, what you're going to do is open her up, and you're going to take that oil and you only want to get, same thing like with the flower essences, you only want to get the oil. You don't want to get the actual plant material. So the oil has now become the menstruum for the plant medicines. And you want to go ahead and pour that medicated oil, delicious, yummy, sticky, icky, gooey, ooey. With this oil, we can just stop here if you want. And then you'll get to choose, okay? You could either stop here with just this medicated plant oil, which is delicious for cuts, burns, muscle aches, hair, skin directly, perineum massage, yoni massage, scrotum massage, everything under the sun like that. Or perhaps for even culinary purposes, okay, if you infused it with rosemary, oregano like that to just support the immune system. Or you can choose to take this oil and then put it inside another receptacle. Put it over some heat. This is going to be our little pretend our pretend clay oven for today. Put it over some heat, okay? And what you would do is then heat up gently this medicated oil. And this one you do want to have a more controlled heat for this process. So I would recommend using like this, like a double or boiler, or if I had these charcoals going, you could just literally set this medicated oil over the charcoal like that. Um, and once the oil is nice and heated up, you're just going to gently shave into it beeswax, soy wax, or shea butter, mango butter. Those are all great thickeners. Okay. What we're looking for is a thickener. Okay. So again, some of my favorite plant thickeners to make a salve, a balm, a lip gloss is going to be either beeswax, soy wax, mango butter, or shea butter. All of those work excellently for thickening herbal oils. And depending on what you have, depending on what you end up using, that will make the difference between if you have made a salve, a balm, a lip gloss, a lip chapstick, a diaper cream, a acne scar cream, a C-section scar cream, like all of those herbal gooey ooey whipped shea butter, like all of the delicious body products that are herbal that we can put on ourselves. The difference is it all starts with the base of this medicated herbal oil back here. It all starts with the base of this herbal medicated oil. And the difference is how thick it is, okay? I'm also not going to give you a specific recipe. In your bonus material, and I have already recommended you some wonderful herbal books that have specific recipes in them. In your bonus material, I will add some examples of some of my favorite recipes. But it really depends, again, what time of year it is, what temperature it is where you're working with, what climate you're in, what altitude you're in. For example, here in Cusco area at high altitude, it can sometimes take up to 20 minutes, 15 minutes just to boil an egg. Okay. So also it's quite cooler here. So I don't need to put as much thickener in my oil because it naturally gets harder here. Okay. It's the same thing. Like if you make a big batch of salves, maybe in the winter time, but then now it's summertime, you'll see that your salves are starting to melt and get oilier because the heat is naturally melting them. So the difference between having a salve, a balm, a lip gloss, all of those things is how thick it is. So I just recommend that you slowly shave little pieces of it, just very slowly at a time, whether you're using your beeswax, your soy, your mango butter, your shea butter. Just slowly experiment with it, like put a little bit in at a time, a little bit being like, I don't know, a half a teaspoon per batch, a teaspoon or two per batch, and then let it stand so that it gets cool. When it's cool, you're going to see what texture and what consistency you're left with. And then you can heat up again, add some more thickener if it's not quite as thick as you want it to be. If you need to work very quickly, sometimes I use a freezer to go ahead and like stabilize it to see what consistency it's going to be. Okay. If you want to get real fancy with your body balms and your body whipped butters like that, you can also use a simple egg beater or a simple handheld blender, for soups or for cookies, whatever, for baking. And you can whip it. Okay. And when you whip it, that gives it a whole nother consistency too. And you would want to whip the medicated plant oil after you add the thickener, okay? And that gives it that, it just whips air into it very quickly. And so it gives it that light, fluffy, very silky, nice shine that we like in our whipped body butters, okay? And definitely for whipping, shea butter and mango butter are a wonderful base to work with. And you can just start by working with them right away, okay? Like instead of using this almond oil here, you could just use straight away mango butter or shea butter to infuse with the plants right away. Tallow is traditional to my people, the Pueblo Acoma Nation, and to many indigenous nations. So, like animal fats would be traditional to use as a plant base, and you can use. It does not have to be a vegetable base oil that you're infusing with the plants. You can start with an animal base, and Karen did mention that as well, like when talking about the Waitascas, that they frequently will use animal fats from animals that they grow. And that's like very nutritious and also has certain spiritual or energetic properties depending on what animal you're incorporating like that. I like to keep a nice little stock of edible mica sparkles online, you know, just to like make it extra nice. You just put some pinches of food grade sparkles in there at the end. It makes it extra lovely. Okay, so that's our oil base for those of us who want to work with topical medicine like that. Now, when we're talking about making a tincture, okay, a tincture, a vinegar, um, a cordial, herbal medicines that are for long-term consumption like that, or when we're trying to stabilize or extract only certain constituents of the plant, okay, which I'm not a huge fan of as an herbalist. I'm much more of a fan of teas and baths and working with the whole plant, but I do recognize, you know, sometimes we have winter time, sometimes we need to preserve our medicines, sometimes we have herbal businesses. So I get it. I get it. So when we're doing a tincture, let's work with tincture time. Tincture time, we can use for tincture time a base of alcohol. It's all going to be the same. So similarly to how the salves, the balms, the body butters are the same base. Um, it's going to be the same method, whether we want to make a medicinal vinegar, which are lovely to have. You can like put it over your salads, use it throughout the winter, put a capful in your soaks, your steams, your baths like that. Or you can make a tincture, you can make a glycerin for those of you. I know we had a question already about not using alcohol to preserve our herbal medicines. Glycerin, food grade glycerin is a great alternative for those who don't want to use alcohol, or for children, or for those who maybe are on a alcohol-free journey. So what we're going to do when we're making a tincture, a vinegar, a glycerin, or any type of herbal medicine preserve for internal consumption, we want to make sure that we're working with sterile containers, which you have in your kit, that we're using sterile workspaces, and that we're, again, working with the dried herbs, okay? I do know herbalists who also work with fresh herbs when making vinegars and tinctures, but you know, for our purposes, better safe than sorry. This isn't an entire comprehensive herbalism training too, and so just err on the side of caution and work with the dried herb whenever possible. So if you're working with fresh herb, like I just harvested these horsetail just from the side of the road a few days ago and dried it hanging upside down. So you can just dry your own, or you can order from some of the sources that we've given you some dried herbs. So to make our tinctures, our vinegars, or glycerins, we are going to put our dried herb in our receptacle like so. I'm making a horsetail one right now because I want the extra psylla. I don't know if we covered horsetail in our herbal ID, but horsetail's one of my favorite herbal allies. She's so strong in silica, calcium, magnesium, trace minerals, wonderful for protecting with bone and teeth density, wonderful to chew on, wonderful for cleansing the blood, like that, wonderful for supporting the kidneys, tonifying the kidneys. And you just want to, just like with your oil, completely fill it up, okay, as much as possible, while still keeping in mind that, like with the oil, we don't want to leave any air pockets or spaces, okay? For the same reason, we don't want an environment where mold or bacteria could grow inside our tincture or our vinegar, okay? Boom, boom, boom. So I'm just doing my do. I'm gonna use the own tincture dropper to just kind of smash it down in there. And you could do this in your tiny little tincture bottle, and you can also do this in your big container. It's up to you, like that. Okay. So now I have a decent amount of herb in my bottle. I want to make sure that there's enough room so that it's going to be completely covered with the liquid. And then I'm going to take my liquid, in this case, the vinegar, or pretending this is vinegar. Okay. Edible vinegar. And we're going to pour. Boom. And then what I like to do after I pour, just like with the oil, is just a little tap on the table or on the hand. Okay, I might take the little lid here and do a little shaky like a Polaroid picture again. Just make sure that there's no air bubbles in there, okay? That's right. Okay, see, so when I shook it, I thought it was full, but now I see that there's still like, I don't know, a quarter of an inch left, okay, of space. That's why we like to shake it, to make sure that all of the herb goes down and that it's completely filled with liquid, because just like the oil, when we're making a tincture, a vinegar, or a glycerin, if we leave too much space or we leave any plant material sticking out, it can grow mold and bacteria, which is a very sad thing. Okay, there we go. And now it is completely filled up. Completely filled up. Completely filled up. Boom. Now that we have our dried herb completely covered and filled with our vinegar, remember this could just as easily be grain alcohol or food grade glycerin, we are going to store in a cool, dry place for at least 1 moon cycle. Different herbalists, this is widely debated in the holistic herbalism community. I'm not here for debating other herbalists because, again, it very much depends if you're in the Amazon, if you're in the Andes, if it's winter, how much light there is, blah, 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 if you use AC in your house. So I like working with moon cycles, me personally as an herbalist, and especially when preparing medicine for survivors, it can be very advantageous to work with moon cycles in a cyclical way like that. And so we are going to store in a cool, dry place for at least 28 days, 1 moon cycle. And every day we're going to come in and just shake it, shake it, just to make sure that it's getting all of the goodness everywhere. Meow, meow, meow. And then after 28 days, your tincture or vinegar or glycerin is ready for consumption. You can just use it with the herb straight in there like this. Or you can drain like we did with our oil, drain it out. Go ahead and just either tincture dropper bottle it in, or if you had a fancy funnel, you could funnel it in there. And there you go. And then you got your handy dandy, non-rootsy looking edible vinegar tincture or glycerin for physical consumption. And when do we want to use our vinegars, glycerins, and tinctures? We like to use those when we need to preserve our medicine long term, so like throughout the winter time. When we want to get the physical constituents of the plants with a lot of punch, if, for example, some of the herbal allies that we covered that are very supportive to the adrenal system or for brain health or for kidney support, things that are actually physically supporting the body like that, especially for our clients ourselves who may have more long-term effects, we may look to tinctures for that. You know, also can be very handy if you're a practitioner who is on the move a lot and it's just not practical for you to be carrying around big bundles of herbs to whip out a tea or a plant bath with. That's when we would look for our tinctures or our vinegars to take internally. Easy peasy. Boom, boom, boom. Ah, yum. Okay. Motherwort, for example, as a midwife, is a tincture that I've always had on me. It's accessible for the postpartum women to take. I know that maybe they're not going to be getting up and making the tea every day, or maybe they don't have someone around them to prepare the tea I left for them every day. And I know that they desperately need hormone support. And so I will give them a motherwort tincture and be like, down this baby, down this baby, down it, down it, down it. Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Okay. The last, I'm just trying to get my chopstick. Okay. The last herbal remedy that I would like, preparation that I would like to show you is a pusanga. Okay. A pusanga is a traditional herbal preparation as prepared by the Shipibo Nation, by one of the Shipibo nations, because they're actually one of the largest indigenous communities still existing in the world, I'm happy to say. And there's Shipibo Nation in Ecuador, Shipibo Nation in Peru, and Brazil. I had the pleasure only to live with some Shipibo nations in Peru. And so that's where I was taught how to make a pusanga there. Pusangas are the original agua florida. So this here is agua florida. Okay, it's perfume alcohol water. That's what this is. It's rubbing alcohol with perfume and a pretty label. Okay. You may have seen, and perhaps in ayahuasca ceremonies, or even in some Santeria ceremonies or Yoruban ceremonies, agua florida being used like this, like Shamangeiki, shamangeiki, dipane soa soa vainge. Where the curandero or curandera actually sings into the agua florida or into the pusanga, and then afterwards we'll do something like this, singing into it. Boom, you get it on your head, you get it on your head, or you get it on the corners of the room, you get it on your spirit guides like this. For me, the grandmas that I diet ayahuasca with and I've had the pleasure, they're much more gentle and do something more like this. Boom, boom, like just like a gentle blanket all around you. And the idea there is that the alcohol is cutting any negative spirits, like the actual base of rubbing alcohol is cutting any negative spirits. And then the medicine songs or chants have actually gone into the menstruum, similar like with the flower essence. And so the agua florida or the pusanga becomes the vehicle through which you can receive more thoroughly the medicine songs or icaros during your ceremony, like that. And then you can take it with you after ceremony, which is beautiful. You can brush your shoulders off. Look, I'm just like spraying it around my house right now. That weird guy walked up. I'm spraying it back there. I'm brushing my shoulders off. You can put some in a little spray bottle, and then you have your own energetic spritzer. Okay, so how would we make, though, a pusanga as opposed to an agua florida? Because this is rubbing alcohol with perfume, but what agua floridas used to all be, the fragrant perfume smell would actually be flowers. Okay, flowers. And so I have these little guys here that I use for spiritual protection that surround my home, and I am and for pusangas I work with fresh plants, fresh plants. Okay, because there's so much alcohol in a pusanga that as long as you don't leave any air pockets at the top, you should be good for bacteria. And so what I'm doing is I'm just going to use an actual agua florida base, and you can feel free to do that too, or you can create your own with rubbing alcohol. And I'm going to actually just fill the bottle with the energetic, and this is another energetic, okay, this is not for internal consumption. It's an energetic plant preparation, okay? So these guys are some of my favorite ones for spiritual protection. They have an affinity, hummingbirds have an affinity for this plant, which hummingbirds here protect women and children, which is totally my vibe right now. So I'm just gonna fill it up with lots of that. Might do some eucalyptus for health and for lungs. And this is such a fun, traditional, energetic herbal preparation, because you can put plants in here, with some of the plants, like the energetic properties that we talked about. I'm just using my chopstick to just like shove it in. Just shove it in there. And you can also work with with animal medicine. So you'll often see, like in a pusanga, perhaps like a claw, or even, I know it's kind of graphic, but like a little tiny snake baby coiled up, or like a little llama fetus, sometimes even, depending on what you're working with. Okay, depending on what you're working with. Sometimes you'll see a pusanga prepared, and there's like little coins in it, or like a little airplane, like rocks. For those of you who work with crystals, you can put your crystal medicine in here and really just make it your own. It's a very um, fun and effective energetic plant preparation, which you can very much personalize. And it's heavily dependent on you singing and chanting to the preparation throughout the process. Okay, right now I'm explaining it to you while I'm doing it. But if this were just our Pusanga making class, we would do this and then together go ahead and sing to it. Okay. And what you want to do with your Pusanga, once you put in all your herbs, so let's say, usually Pusangas are made like, there's like money ones, there's health ones, there's ones for making people fall in love with you, which I'm not encouraging you to do that. There's ones for opening your vision in ceremony, which I am encouraging you to do that, please. There are ones for healing sexual trauma. There are ones for protection. Okay, we went over several herbs that are good for protection. So we could be putting this like yerba santa in here, and like maybe some like little tips of vulture feathers, for example, stuff that we've talked about like that. Once you've gotten all of your plant medicines in there like that, like so, okay, fully packed. It's fully packed. Fully packed. And remember, you could put your mineral medicine or other stuff. Then you're gonna sing to it, okay? Sing, like a mic. Om Abhya Nagpurvatso Swa. Om Abhya Nagpurvatso Swa. Like so. And you can sing and sing and sing into it. It's wonderful to keep with you in ceremony when you're traveling. Yeah, like I said, to use as a spritzer, keep in the car. I love my pusangas. I love my pusangas. Pusangas are lovely. Okay. There's entire curanderos and curanderas who all the herbal medicine they ever use or work with is pusangas. Okay. So there you have pusangas. Last but not least, to make your own non-culturally appropriated medicine bundle. Nowadays, we have lots of people saging with the white over harvested grandfather sage that's not even culturally relevant to them. So why not make your own? Why not make your own? So we went over many herbs that are energetically good for protection and cleansing and enforcing boundaries. I'm just going to give you a little example. Your red piece of cloth and string is meant for you to make your own non-culturally appropriated medicine bundle with herbs inside of it, okay? So for right now, I'm just going to use eucalyptus as an example. If you're in California, a great one would be yerba santa because it's wonderful for boundary holding. Okay, so I just took these dried leaves. When we're making a medicine bundle to carry with us long term, it's important to use dried herbs instead of fresh so that they don't mold inside our medicine bundle, okay? And I'm just carefully placing them all right side up, okay? so that it's straight like an arrow. Okay, straight like an arrow, on point. Okay, like us, on point. And I'm just gently rolling it up together. Boom, 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 boom. And then I'm going to take my string, okay, and I'm going to start at the base here. I'm making a really tiny one. You do not have to make yours this tiny. I'm going to start at the base here and wrap it 4 times. Boom. Okay. And then I'm going to crisscross. I'm going to watch and crisscross. Okay. Watch and crisscross. Crisscross and wrap. And then I'm going to tie at the base again. Okay. I'm actually using a silver chain instead of a string because that's what I have. And then you just want to wrap 4 times at the base. Boom. So that you have your little herbal medicine bundle there. Okay. Like a tiny little smudge bundle. I'll get one that I made for my daughter's birth giveaway ceremony from White Prairie Sage, just to give you an idea of how little they can get. Yeah. So you can make yours really big if you want, like an actual, like what you're used to seeing as a smudge bundle, but this is one made with White Prairie Sage that I used actual like sewing thread to wrap. Okay. And you see we're at the base there. It's very tight. I like to wrap it for the 4 directions or the 7 directions. Okay. And then you wrap it up. This is from her little birth giveaway bundles like that. Okay. And so that is the last herbal preparation I would like to leave you with. You could literally just take your little herbal bundle and then just like use your red cloth to like tie it around once and then like just wear straight that. Like that's fine too. I'm going to go ahead and close down with our Tibetan chant for vanquishing and liberating the demons. Y'all. Om Abhya Nagpo So Om Abhya Nagpo So Om Abhya Nagpo So Om Abhya Nagpo So